fighting for the oppressed, be they whoever you want it to be. Whether you're a maniac like Bowers who somehow views white Europeans in America as being oppressed, or you're somebody marching for Black Lives Matters, who actually is marching on behalf of the historically oppressed people. Suddenly the unique, horrible, conspiracy theory nature of anti-Semitism makes your actions noble, makes exposing and resistance to a diabolical group of Jews who therefore must be overthrown for the good of mankind, a good deed. And we see not only how this has animated anti-Semitism in America and in Europe, but let's look at some of Israel's enemies. Hamas, in Article 22 of its charter, describes Jews this way, quote, "With their money, the Jews took control of the world media, news agencies, the press, publishing houses, broadcasting stations, and others. With their money, they stirred revolutions in various parts of the world with the purpose of achieving their interests and reaping the fruit therein. They were behind the French Revolution, the Communist Revolution, and most of the revolutions we've heard about and hear about, here and there. With their money, they formed the most secret societies, such as Freemasons, Rotary Clubs, the Lions, and others in different parts of the world for the purpose of sabotaging societies and achieving Zionist interests. With their money, they were able to control imperialistic countries and instigate them to colonize many countries in order to enable them to exploit their resources and spread corruption there." Hamas understands the conspiracy theory power of anti-Semitism. They understand how embracing that conspiracy theory of Jewish power and evil Jews enables anti-Semitism to be disguised as a force for even social justice. And sadly, even when a theocratic Islamist group that throws gay people off of buildings embraces this theory, it doesn't stop groups like JVP and BLM from embracing those same theories here in America. And we can see how this combination of the age-old version of anti-Semitism combined with this intersectionality theory of anti-Semitism, combined with this concept of ours as a Voldemort-type character, affects lives of our children on college campuses and affects us here in this room in ways that are far beyond these kinds of things being relegated to the dark web or some alt-right chat rooms. In the spring of 2016, a Stanford University Senate debated a resolution undertaken to condemn anti-Semitism. They wanted to condemn in this resolution, citing conspiracy theories about the power of Jews as a collective, especially, but not exclusively, the myth about Jews controlling the media, the economy, government, or other societal institutions. You would think that in 2016 at Stanford University, this would not be a controversial motion to pass. But a student senator named Gabriel Knight, who was a junior at arguably the best university in America, maybe the world, so not a dumb person, not a character like this Bowers person who butchered our people last week. They probably couldn't have gotten into his local community college. But a junior in Stanford University said that the resolution would be irresponsible. He argued that it could stifle what he thought was a very valid discussion. His exact words were that talking about Jews controlling the media, economy, and government and other societal institutions that it's a fixture of anti-Semitism that we theoretically shouldn't challenge is irresponsible. I think that that's kind of irresponsibly foraying into another politically contentious conversation. Questioning these potential power dynamics, I think, is not anti-Semitic. I think it's a very valid discussion. He thought that it's a very valid discussion to discuss Jewish control of the economy, of the media, of our government, and other societal institutions. He did not think that saying that was anti-Semitic was a good idea. But as everybody sitting here in this room probably knows, claiming that Jews control the media, the government, the banks, is precisely the kind of words that have launched pogroms, have launched massacres, destroyed communities for generations, and even led us into the gas chamber. Louis Farrakhan called Jews termites a few weeks ago to a crowd who laughed and cheered in response on video. He posted that video on Facebook and on Twitter. Facebook eventually took down that post, but they haven't taken down Louis Farrakhan's page. Twitter hasn't even taken down the post. Louis Farrakhan's Facebook page has over 1 million followers. He hasn't been ostracized from society. President Clinton sat next to him at Aretha Franklin's funeral. I should correct that. He sat on the same dais with him, 2 bodies away from him. Can you imagine if a president of the United States or a former president of the United States sat next to David Duke, or within 3 people of David Duke, on a dais? Louis Farrakhan said Hitler was a great man. Louis Farrakhan, as I've said before, refers to us as the synagogue of Satan. He calls us termites. You exterminate termites. And yet, the former president of the United States didn't find it acceptable to say to the organizers of Aretha Franklin's funeral, it's either me on this dais or Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan is praised by 3 of the 4 leaders of the Women's March. Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour repeatedly said that he's the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And Linda Sarsour also said that, who claims to have moral authority on racism and fighting it, said that all Zionists are creepy. Let's do the math on that. That means she thinks that 6 million Jews in Israel are creepy, and approximately 85% of the world Jews in the rest of the world are, quote, creepy. Because that's the number of Jews who are Zionists. So she thinks basically somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of the world's Jews are creepy. Imagine if a Jewish leader got up in America and said, I think 80% or 90% of the world's Muslims are creepy. Would anybody tolerate that person? Would he be walking around Jewish society right now, accepted? Would the media at large give him a pass? Of course not. The Prime Minister of Malaysia referred to Jews as hook-nosed and trying to rule the world. And he claimed we're trying to kill all Muslims. Yet, international society has not ostracized him. He spoke recently at Oxford. He was invited to speak at Oxford. A man who stands up and says, hook-nosed Jews want to rule the world. Jenny Tong, a member of the House of Lords in England, after the heinous attack this past Saturday at the Tree of Life Synagogue, tweeted or posted on social media, quote, I wonder if Bibi Netanyahu doesn't realize that he's responsible for these acts. He's causing anti-Semitism. David Duke, of course, not to be forgotten in this litany of anti-Semites, said, quote, there is a problem in America with a very strong, powerful tribal group that dominates our media and dominates our international banking. His followers, of course, had Nazi flags on full display at right-wing rallies in Charlottesville, And recently on the Gaza border, we have seen those same Nazi flags flying. Last December, Mahmoud Abbas delivered a rant for 2 hours. He alleged wild conspiracy theories. He claimed that the Western powers wanted to bring Jews here, referring to Israel, from Europe to maintain European interests in the region. So the Europeans who for 2,000 years treated us like dirt wanted to ship us to, in this theory, to the land of Israel so we could further their interests. He also claimed that they asked Holland, which he claimed had the largest navy in the world, to transfer the Jews. So everything he said there was complete nuts, right? Abbas also declared in this rant that Israel's importing frightening amounts of drugs to destroy our younger generation, again, feeding into the conspiracy theory of anti-Semitism. And in that same exact speech, Mahmoud Abbas said that we brought the Holocaust on ourselves. That it was not anti-Semitism that caused the Holocaust, but, quote, Jewish behavior. And yet, after he gave that speech, Mahmoud Abbas is still treated by 90% of the world as an actual legitimate statesman and a person to be treated with respect in all capitals of the globe. This list could go on and on and on. Sad truth is that anti-Semitism did not explode this past Shabbat. It's been exploding for many years. It is the oldest, most malleable, most fluid form of bigotry of all. And it's also, sadly, the most unifying. It's the one thing that extremists on the left and extremists on the right agree on. Since World War II ended, it had a few decades of living on the fringe of society. But again, as Rabbi Wright spoke about before, that is consistent with our history. Whether we were living as second-class citizens in Arab lands or in European lands, there are always ebbs and flows to our suffering, to our persecution, and to anti-Semitism rearing its ugly head. But now anti-Semitism in America, just like it has been in Europe over the last 10 years at least, is coming out into the mainstream more. It's festering on both fringes of the political parties. It's becoming more and more openly embraced by candidates running for office in both parties. We have actual Nazis running as Republican candidates in this country right now. We have actual Democrats who say the same kinds of things that Linda Sarsour says, who deny our right to live as a free people in our indigenous homeland, who deny that we even are a people, who believe or spread the most vicious anti-Semitic canards about the Jewish state. And again, if anybody tells me that when you say things like that Israel's committing genocide, that you're not being anti-Semitic, you're just not being honest. Again, Israel's an imperfect place, just like America. You're entitled to criticize Israel. God knows every other Israeli criticizes Israel. But when you demonize the Jewish state, when you hold the Jewish state to a standard that you don't hold to any other state, when you engage in wild, crazy accusations, the same ones that you used to make about the Jew as an individual, but now you make it about the Jew as the Jew of Israel as the Jew among nations, then that's anti-Semitism. And now we have many people, sadly, running for office as Democrats in this country who are embracing that anti-Semitism. So hatred is uniting against our people. Once again, not new, but it's happening, and we are right now living to see it. So, what do we do? This gets to the constructive part of the discussion that Rabbi Wright asked me to bring up. In addition to what I said before, which is remembering